A wise man once said, horror games are scary. And that would be true until now, because today I'm going to make a horror game, but I'm only going to be able to use free assets. This means I have to download a bunch of random free models online, throw them into my game, and hope it turns out to be something absolutely terrifying. This game will be scarier than Fortnite and Roblox combined. Alright, that makes no sense, but let's get started. What could possibly go wrong? From my past experience of being a game developer, I know that the first step to make a game is to actually create a game. So from my own wisdom, I opened up Unity and gave my project name something appropriate. I gave it this name because hopefully Unity will see this and then activate the super scary mode for my game. I impatiently waited for my game to open, but it was taking too long, so my screen recording froze, but off camera I was able to develop a basic prototype. The first thing I did was add a bean with some sunglasses as usual. Before you panic and say that this isn't a free asset, I'd like to assure you that yeah, you're right. But it doesn't matter because it's just a player and you won't be able to see the player since the game will be in first person. Also, if you're wondering what this horror game is even going to be about, I actually don't know and I'm just going along with it and hoping it'll be scary. Adding the movement and the camera look is always pretty boring but essential. I mindlessly typed away on my keyboard and added a good old floor to the scene so the player doesn't just fall into the endless void below. I then proceeded to watch my absolute work of art. Needless to say, it was terrifying already. I had to yoink my code from my medieval game because apparently I had memory loss and I can't remember how to make the player movement to save my life. At least now the movement's working and I've successfully made the fundamentals for this horror game. A horror game is never scary without something scary, so now I need to add some kind of monster into the game. I went to the Unity asset store and searched for some monster models. Then I dragged the pricing all the way down to be free and I found this cursed priest character. Since it looked pretty spooky, I downloaded the asset and added it into my game. Since I'm making things up on the go, I had no idea as to what the setting should be. Should it be a forest, a hospital, or even a house? I chose the forest and I obviously chose it because it's really cool and not because it's the easiest to make or anything like that. I started to make this forest not by adding trees, but by changing the skybox. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing, but eventually I went to the asset store and found this free tree pack. It turns out the forests actually have a lot of trees, so I spread a bunch around the map. This horror game is a little too bright for my liking, so I made it unbright by adding a bunch of black fog, and I replaced the skybox that I just added a second ago to be a solid black color. But now, there's this slight problem where the player literally can't see anything at all. I think I made it a little too dark, so how does every horror game solve this problem? They add a flashlight. I bet you've never heard of a horror game where you're in a dark forest with a flashlight. I may have just made the most cliche game ever known to man, but I promise, there's a lot more scary stuff to add. I realized that the cursed priest model doesn't even come with any animations, and since I don't want him just floating around, I went to the asset store to find another monster. I ended up finding this creepy crawly thing and it actually comes with the animations. I then set up some basic AI so the monster would chase the player around, and I also added a health bar. By the way, do you need a video editor? I will edit your videos just like mine. To keep it short, I can make your videos funny and engaging. Check the link in the description after this video if you want me to become your video editor, and let's get back into the video. In order to let the players know what's going on, I thought to make a system where some messages will appear at the top of the screen. The opening message will warn the players that there are monsters, and the second message will tell the player to find a stick and a rock. I randomly thought of an idea that the player should have to find a stick and a rock in order to craft a sword. Obviously, this is how it works. All you need to do is find some random rock and twig in the woods and you can make a sword. After adding the sword model from the asset store into my game, the player can now craft a sword, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want more than one type of monster, so I found this pumpkin head thing on the asset store, put it into my game, and I also made a message that tells the player to kill 5 monsters because I didn't really know what else to do. I also found this blood particle on the asset store, and then I added it into the game so the players will be able to know when they hit the monsters. Then I added the scariest part of the entire game. I would not tell you what it is, just watch. I then added some post-processing to the game which made it more blue, and I think this looks a bit better and more of like a horror environment than before. In order to make this forest feel more like an actual forest and not just a floor with some trees, I put some mountains around the map and added colliders so the player would not be able to escape. I also put some random hills around the game so it isn't just flat everywhere. All of this adds a lot of ambience to the game and makes it feel like you're actually in the woods. Now, if the player gets killed by a monster, I need some pop-up to show that the player has died, so I put together this death screen and used my expertise in the English language to tell the player that they are death. So now you can get killed, and yep, you are death. I added this AAA sound effect into the game to let the players know that they've been hit, and yeah, what can I say, that's an awesome sound effect. Currently, the monsters look alright, but I know a way to make them look a lot scarier. I added these spheres into the monster models and I made them red. Now, the monsters all have glowing red eyes and that adds a bunch of atmosphere to the game. I went over to Freesound to get some random monster noises because currently they don't make any noise at all and that's just kinda weird. I came up with this brilliant idea that the player should have to collect gemstones to spawn a portal, and you could definitely tell that I ran out of ideas by now. I'm going to use magic effects free from the asset store for the portal, and I will be using the stylized crystal model for the gemstones. So after the player kills 5 monsters, there will be a message that pops up at the top of the screen, and it'll tell them to find 10 gemstones to spawn the portal and escape. After I did some coding to make my awesome idea come to life, the player can escape the forest and win the game. When the portal was spawned, I don't want it to be too easy to escape, so I added this big boss thing which totally isn't just a pumpkin head scaled up. You could tell that I put a lot of effort into that one, but you can also tell that I put a lot more effort into this epic pop-up that shows when you escape through the portal. Every good horror game needs a speedrun timer in the bottom right corner. Said no one ever, but if you're interested in speedrunning the game, then there you go. To make the game more interesting and more difficult, I decided to add a stamina mechanic so the player would not be able to sprint forever. First, I added the UI for the stamina bar, then I hooked it up to some code to make the bar go down when the player sprints. I had to mess around with some values to figure out how fast your stamina should run out, but I think I found a good amount. Right now, there is no main menu, so I copied over the game scene, set up the camera in the right position, and started to add the text for the title of the game. After a bunch of thinking, I decided a good name for the game would be Forested Horror. As you can tell, I'm very creative. I added a play button, and then I realized I should add the monsters with their glowing eyes in the background to give the player an idea of what the game is about. I added a menu for the player if they want to know how to play the game, and I made sure to make it really helpful. Then I added a bunch of sounds like one for the player when they run out of stamina, and I also added a random toilet in the game in case you have to go. Yeah, I actually have no idea why I added that, but yeah, now there's a toilet. So that's gonna do it for this game. If you want to play it, there will be a link in the description and you won't have to download it. If you like this video, then you'll like one of the videos that is on screen now. Click on one of them and thanks for watching.